It's now, then I realized that like everything I'm saying is going live. Where does the big live button go off?
I think we're on.
Are we on?
I think we're live.
Hello, everybody. Look, you get to peek behind the fourth wall just to see what an online backstage area looks like, and it's kind of like the real thing, except without hummus or carrots or celery, digital hummus. Anyway, it's good to have you on with us this lunchtime. The panel that we have for you for the next 40, 50 minutes or whatever we do is the UK's new media landscape. And you may have gone to panels like this maybe last year or the year before or the year before that. And I can say very confidently that this is one of those panels that isn't the same every single year. Like the landscape of media in the UK and elsewhere changes with such a ferocious pace that it's good to keep acknowledging it and know where it's going and how it can benefit you, your music and your career as well. So just to sort of get into the introductions, my name is Phil Taggart. For another 2 weeks, I'm a broadcaster at Radio 1, and then I'm moving elsewhere, which I can't say quite yet where it is. But if you want to buy Avon, I'm your man. And then I also have The Slacker's Guide to the Music Industry, which is a book where I got all the best people in music together and got their advice and put it in one book, which is on sale for Christmas right now. And I run a small record label called Hometown Records, and I'm sitting with 3 different areas of the UK media landscape, and I'll get them to introduce themselves, starting with Charlotte.
Meet myself. Hi, I'm Charlotte Gunn. Till the end of last year, I was the editor of NME, where I'd worked for the last 5 years. Kind of oversaw quite a big period in its history when it moved from print to digital. This year, I have set up a new project called The 45, which is a new online music publication staffed by a team of female creatives with a kind of focus on trying to rebalance the industry a little bit. That's me.
Nice one, Charlotte. Thank you. Elspeth.
Hello. I am called Elspeth, as you know. I just started at Inside Out as head of PR after spending 4 years at Island Records as a senior publicist. I actually started at Inside Out as an intern, so I've come full circle. And now I'm heading up the PR department and have brought a few artists with me from Ireland, including Sigrid, who I'm sure you're all aware of, and sports team. And that's me now. And I'm actually in an office, which is crazy. Yeah.
That's living the dream, starting as an intern and coming back and being able to fire all the people that were rude to you when you were an intern, isn't it?
It is.
Jay, tell us a little bit about what you do.
So, hello, I am Jay. I've been doing radio promotions in the UK for longer than the grey hair that you see in front of you. I started at Anglo Plugging in the late 90s, promoting things like Fatboy Slim, Oasis, Left Field, Chemical Brothers, and so on. Then moved to Warner's, doing radio promotions again before setting up On a Plate as a radio promotions and management company in 2004, early managing things like Subtract, for instance. I'm still plugging and I'm managing artists currently, including Emma-Jean Thackeray, North Downs, and a new electronic act called Jacana People.
I mean, that's a portfolio career there from pretty much everybody. I guess let's get the elephant out of the room first, so we can move on to happier, more super happy, smiley wish times. How has the pandemic affected your work, and do you think it's affected the coverage that young and new bands or artists get? Starting with you, Charlotte.
Yeah, it's been weird. I mean, I launched this whole thing sort of mid-pandemic, which was possibly a bit of a mad decision. But I think there's still loads of opportunity, like for people to get coverage, and in a way, because there's been no shows to write about, I think everybody's been focusing a little bit more on interview time and sort of different formats. I've seen some quite like cool new video things coming to the fore. So yeah, in a way, I would say it's sort of business as usual for me. I mean, financially things are a bit difficult, but I think that everyone can agree with that. But yeah, there's still, you know, much the same. Music discovery is working in much the same way, apart from obviously the element where you see a band supporting another band and think they're great and want to write about them. But yeah, not too much change my end, I would say.
What about you, Elspeth?
Well, obviously, a few publications closed down this year. You could argue the great bastions of music journalism, like Q Magazine, that unfortunately closed. But there is also the argument that these are publications that have been going for many, many years, but they also need to catch up with the times, which is digital. And I think we are seeing a move more towards like really amazing, good quality digital content. And I say digital and I include podcasting in that because I see that as an area of like, this is long form journalism at its best and at its most intimate. So as a publicist, that's also part of our role now to pitch the podcast. So I think, yes, we can be doom and gloom saying that a lot of like big publications have closed, but actually so many niche publications have popped up. And I think Charlotte's amazing company, The 45, like created by women for women, like I think there's a captive audience for like smaller publications. And you just can't, I guess you can't win and do everything when you're like a huge media platform, and actually having focus and having a niche really works for you. So yeah.
Jay, do you like, has it been the same with you? Like have things changed a lot in radio? I always feel like coming from radio myself, that like last things alive will be Keith Richards, like a radio transmitter. Like it feels like radio never tends to go down.
Yeah, radio has been, I mean, at the start, I thought it was going to be kind of curtains for a lot of new music and stuff, but I think the opposite is true. You know, artists have been mostly at home, mostly in their studio, creating new music. I think labels, there's always a lot of music out there, but, you know, it hasn't stopped this year in that sense of things. And I think that, you know, radio, as you say, the comms are still up, people are still broadcasting, and they're still seeking out new music and new exciting things and artists to play. So yeah, there hasn't been too much change in terms of volume of music beyond it just always be busy.
I mean, the landscape of radio in the UK is actually quite small in terms of like how many programs there are that will actually play music that's not commercial or that isn't Pink or Lil Mix. Like, I mean, you really only got a couple of stations like Radio 1 and Six Music and a couple of others. Is that right?
Yeah, I think so. I think the BBC is a lifesaver to new music, both domestic and international. You know, commercial radio is pretty tough if it is not a, you know, commercial pop record, which is 9 times out of 10 on a major. You know, the BBC, off the top of my head, have 7 national networks that play a varying type of new music. But, you know, 1 and 6 Music, 1 Extra particularly, you know, Radio 1 Dance now launched. It's fantastic for new music. Within all those stations, there are some great people, DJs and producers, not like yourself rather, Philly, you know, who really are seeking out what's good and what's new and really trying to champion that. And, you know, I think it's a really good thing for the UK radio landscape. But you're right, there aren't tons of places outside there. There are a lot of smaller stations, maybe like NTS, like Represent, who also, you know, do champion new music, but the ones with, you know, a built-in audience attached, Radio 1, 6 Music, 1 Extra, let's say, are really where you want to be a lot of the time.
Yeah,
to try and get that.
I definitely do hear a lot of Norwegian and Nordic acts. But we'll come back to that in a little bit. I kind of almost want to do a case study, like each of us, like take one case study of like an artist that you've worked with or covered that has navigated that sort of media landscape from sort of zero fans up until a bit of recognition that we might know or may have done something. Do you know what I mean? Like I think it's gonna be very scary for a lot of artists to look out there and not have any fans on Instagram or not have any place on Spotify. So it's useful to hear the stories of people who started from the very bottom, and I guess that's everybody. Elspeth, have you got one that comes to mind?
Probably Benny, the Norwegian. God, I always think about Sigrid and then I always go to Norwegian. But Benny, the New Zealand pop star, I think she's an interesting case study because she signed to Island Records and Republic just over a year ago, and her rise has been incredibly quick. So I was introduced to her. She had just put out Soaked, didn't have hardly any Instagram followers. Like the video was like moving slowly up. But she got signed, and then I immediately kind of like chose 5 journalists that I thought would really love her. So instead of picking a publication necessarily, I went for freelance writers and picked a lot of like new pop writers like Douglas Greenwood, Kate Solomon, Alim. And we did a 10 things with ID, and that was the first feature we did for her. And then I actually, because she looks incredible and she's got such an amazing sense of style, I actually wanted to target photographers as well. So I reached out to quite a few photographers, and then we managed to pitch in a feature to Teeth magazine and did an incredible shoot when she flew over to London. With Benny, it's really interesting, and I wanted to bring her up because of the power of TikTok and how that's completely transformed her growth. I think she now has almost 1 million followers on Instagram. And before Super Lonely, like a track that she had put out, that she had written before lockdown, again, this was very serendipitous because the subject matter was that we're all fucking lonely, and then lockdown happens, and then someone creates a dance move. And then also bearing in mind the artist was not using TikTok and didn't engage with TikTok. This was something that completely happened without her. Like she only found out about it like when she started getting like millions of views. And I think TikTok completely transformed her album campaign because she got a top 10 hit in the UK. Again, the power of TikTok, that's probably like for another discussion. But then my job was actually to position her in a way where the story wasn't, and it did kind of become this, that TikTok created her, because actually she was an artist in her right before the TikTok thing happened. She had already written an incredible album. So my job during the album campaign was to really portray the artist position, not just like a one-hit wonder. And I think that was also her worry as well, because she was like, I don't have the touch points of playing live to fans that had listened to the album. I haven't traveled to the UK. So, you know, when you're a teenager and you're really forming those early music memories and all you have is an album stream, you start to think like, will I remember that? So she's really conscious of that. But I suppose, sorry, going back to your question, she did sign a deal pretty early on, and that obviously really helped her. But from like a PR strategy point of view, it was really like with my expertise, finding those 5 people that I knew to get them on early, they would champion her through her career. And that's happened around album campaign because we did some amazing features and got some incredible album reviews.
I do think it's always really interesting, like, cause like from a publicist like point of view, you kind of almost have to keep them away from just being a TikTok artist or like which would have previously been a SoundCloud artist, because for some reason those areas of music are seen as I don't know, like a cheaper form of artistry, which isn't necessarily true, but it seems to be a way when it's written about. It's interesting. Obviously, like you're coming at it from the point of view of bringing the music to someone, and Jay similar. Charlotte, a lot of the time, those people are like the people that are bringing the music or bringing it to you. Like, I guess it's the same sort of question to Elspeth. Like somebody that you've seen or covered in recent times that has navigated that media landscape to their advantage.
Yeah, I mean, there's been so many people. Probably, well, a couple of examples. I would say Wolf Alice was certainly one. With NME, they kind of were on them like so early, and to kind of see that through to them winning the Mercury was a really nice sort of journey to be part of. I mean, myself only latterly, but yeah, I mean, super early on them, and gave them some of their, if not their first mag cover, and just a sort of picking a band that you just know you're going to give constant support to, and sort of really just, yeah, follow them on their journey. But that was a nice one. I mean, I wouldn't like to say that we take credit for this in any way, but our new music guy at NME, the new music guy at NME, I need to stop saying ow, Tom Smith, was really early on Billie Eilish, and that in my kind of era, he was sort of doing like new music pieces with her when she was sort of really small, and you could just easily get access with her and like have a quick chat with her whenever she was over. We were at some of her first UK shows, certainly, and then to see that build really over the last 4 or 5 years to the year 2019. We kind of kicked off the year with her having a cover as the sort of lead person in our new music piece, because she was pre-debut album, to her finishing the year with like album of the year on the cover again. So yeah, that was quite a good one to see through again, and like being at her last UK show where she'd like absolutely erupted already, and she was playing a venue that was like way too small for her, and just like the amazing atmosphere of like just being around all these young women who were just like enamored with her, and it was a really exciting story to kind of see firsthand.
It's interesting. Next time you see Billie Eilish, it'll probably be Wembley Stadium.
Well, yeah, exactly. I think it was Shepherd's Bush, maybe, but yeah, it was it's really cool.
Crazy to see that growth. Jay, what about you? Like bringing artists through radio. Like who like in your head sort of sticks out as somebody that's done it the right way, navigated it the right way? Oh, can everybody else hear Jay, or is it just me?
There we go. Muted, unmuted. Apologies. Picking one from this year. Ago, I heard a singer from LA called Lady Blackbird. I don't know if you picked up on her yet, Phil, but you know, good management, good team behind, but just the most incredible voice I'd ever heard. The record on a whole was a lot of covers, you know, done in really interesting ways, you know, and leading out with a Nina Simone cover of Blackbird. And, you know, the challenge was, how do we get what is a lot of historically, you know, traditional or, you know, classic songs into, you know, pop radio, let's say. And from the first single, just getting to the right people, starting with, you know, tastemakers like Giles Peterson, getting him the songs early and hearing him go as crazy as I felt about her on, you know, first listen, to the point of he's managed to sneak the album from somewhere and played 5 songs in one show, which, you know, the album's not out until next year. And that was kind of the level of, you know, positivity about her, through to trying to get her music more across to Radio 1 and getting some remixes by different people, and then, you know, securing plays from shows like Pete Tong, through to, you know, broadening out across to Radio 2 even, and getting Trevor Nelson, you know, through to Radio 4. And the kind of challenge across those records and getting the support in all those different places, you're really starting to build a picture. I think she's on the verge of signing a major deal now, just in the, you know, the space of this year, from the support mainly from radio, you know, with a bit of support from DSPs and, you know, some people writing very nice things about her. But, you know, it came from the song initially, and I think she's going to go on and have a great career, but early, but still really exciting.
If you want to like make an absolute like fortune as an artist, it seems to be those artists that do that are the ones that are able to traverse all of the radio stations and somehow manage to get played on One Extra, Radio 2, Radio 1 and 6 Music. And there are very few artists like that, like Dizzy Rascal, maybe Stormzy, and you know, but
it's
like
really hard to do that.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, it's really hard to do that. You know, the networks these days are more fragmented than they used to be. You know, I would imagine partly due to licenses and whatever, you know, there needs to be points of difference between various BBC platforms. But, you know, a great travel across borders and boundaries, which, you know, hopefully we're going to see post-Brexit and all of that. But just in terms of our radio landscape in the UK, you know, what feels quite fragmented, every now and again you get a song, you know, from some of the artists you've mentioned, and it's just like, wow, how is that everywhere? It's just good and works. And, you know, Ed Sheeran's probably one of the best examples of that in a time. He's just everywhere. But, you know, good songs really do travel.
Elspeth, when you are like sort of sitting back after a campaign's finished and you're looking at what's worked and what hasn't worked, what do you think in terms of PR and what you do is the best like exposure to fan engagement? Like, is that print, is that online, is that podcast? Like, where do you think that you move the needle for an artist the most?
I think it's really difficult to tell with fan engagement. Like, I was sat in a record label boardroom with the president saying, press doesn't sell records, but get me 5-star reviews. And I was like, well, 5-star reviews are going to sell records because you're going to put them on your posters, and it all feeds into everything. And I think, you know, media, like some platforms do have like a lot of unique monthly visitors, but I think it's all about like the story within the piece, and then that's reshared on the social media of the artist. And a band sports team I work with, they're like marketing gurus as a band, because the community they have cultivated on their socials and through this WhatsApp group, they have like 200 fans on there, and they're constantly drip feeding them like bits of press, but they'll take out like quite funny off-kilter bits, and then it will become a meme that then goes out onto the various sports team fan accounts. So I think, yeah, I suppose for an artist, like engaging with the media that you have and not just saying thanks for the great write-up, but like tweeting the writer directly. So I work with Dodie, and she got into a really good conversation on her Twitter, and she's followed by millions with Luke Holland, who reviewed her for the Guardian Guide. And again, like, flattery does get you somewhere, but I think find those writers that are writing it and engage in conversation with them. And as well, that's something that your fans can look at and read.
Charlotte, the face of online music journalism has changed so much, like over the last year, even as much as it has the last like 5 to 10. Like, is it difficult to find the space to give to completely unknown entities?
I think it's all about the story. I mean, so yeah, I mean, from everywhere I've worked, really, a new artist, obviously, if they've got a great tune, then brilliant. But like, you've got to get it in the ears of the writer first of all. And like, the reality is, you know, that like Enemy, huge publication, it has one new music person. You know, my thing's a lot smaller, but it's basically just me and then freelancers, so who do feed in a lot of tips. But so that's the kind of first challenge. But yeah, I mean, in terms of like, you want people to read it, and online you don't, even a big brand, people don't tend to like go to the homepage and read front to back like a website, like you would a magazine. So you have to be able to create a headline, which a lot of people call clickbait, but I don't necessarily agree. That it is just appeals to people on a level that isn't just, oh, here's another new person that you should listen to because they're really good. So yeah, I would just encourage people to think about that, like what's their point of difference as an artist, or like what's something else that they could be talking about, or like what's their story other than just like how they got into music or made their music.
I think that's a really interesting point, and something I'll definitely aim at Jay and Elspeth as well. I was on your site this morning, and like you immediately dragged me into with the Youngblood review because I hadn't heard anything yet, and I went into it and pretty slated it and gave it 2.5, and I was like, I mean, this is,
we don't do like, that really often, by the way. But.
No, but this is good because I got my blood pumping, because everywhere else everybody is like calling him the new Messiah, so it made me read to the very end to go figure out why. But talking about stories, it's something that artists and anybody creating art, even if it's not music, if it's anything else, has to contextualize it in some way to go, this is where it's come from, and this is the home that it comes from. How important is having a story for you, Elspeth, to be able to get people interested to write about it? And do you have to sometimes formulate a story?
Having a story is the most important thing. Like, I heard something recently, and it was like, we retain 70% of information through storytelling and only 10% through numbers and stats. And I think with media, especially with journalism, like journalists like will respond to a brilliant story. And I do, yes, the music has to be great, but I do, like, the way I kind of spin a pitch would be like, I think about the writer that I'm speaking to, but I also think like, what things are they going to pick up within their story? And that's always at the heart of, like, before you do anything, it's like getting the biography, picking the best journalist to write the biography for the artist so that the story is refined. And again, that's written with the artist, they approve it. And then that is the story that then acts as the foundation for radio, for commercial, for TV. So a story is everything, and it's incredibly, incredibly important. And I think to Charlotte's point earlier about the fact that, you know, the Enemy has one new music editor and only so much space, like, what's going to be that hook that brings them in?
Jay, is it the same with you?
I think, yeah, you know, initially for radio, and, you know, you work off your ears. Do I like it? Is it good? Do you think you can do something with this record? Will people like it? You know, I think maybe one shot at, yeah, it's good. And then people want to know more. If they like it, you know, they want to invest a bit more time and want to know more. And when you're up against 5, 10, 20, 100 records, having a story, having a narrative definitely helps position you and contextualize it as to why it should be in those spaces, you know, be that radio or anywhere. So it really does help when an artist and a label knows who their artist is and how they want to position, or, you know, where the artist has come from. So yeah, I think overall, yes.
Right, let's get tangible as fuck. Let's get some real life tips coming in here, right? I've got 2 questions. I'm going to go around twice. Real, tangible, good advice for somebody who's got no budget, and good, tangible, real advice for somebody who's got a bit of budget. Let's start with a bit. I guess this is probably more for Jay and Elspeth than it is for me or you, Charlotte, because we're normally the people that are getting it fed to us rather than the other way around. Let's start with a little bit of budget, Elspeth.
I think research is the most important thing. So I think if you're an artist, you should be looking at what writers are writing what about who. Think about what artists you want to be aligned with yourself, and really do your research into who's playing them on radio, what Spotify playlists are they in, so that you have kind of like quite tangible goals. And I also do think, like, even before you get a publicist on board, which does, cost money, like if you're very happy with the music that you have, and you're ready to release it, like reach out to those tastemakers, like send them tailored emails, look at features that they've written, like talk about them, engage them in conversation. I do really think that works before, like, if you don't have a lot of budget, before you get a proper team on board, like really, do your research and think, where do I want to sit? Who do I want to be interviewing me? I think that's really important.
Jay, you've got, like, I'm walking up to you and I'm like, I've got this really wicked record, but I've got no money. How would I get this out on radio?
Elspeth, really do some research. What is your record sounding like? Who's playing the kind of record like yours? Find those people. Use social networks to befriend them, follow them, see what they're interested in. Start conversations naturally where you can. Find good, passionate people around you, and they're not always inaccessible. So yeah, if no money, I think research is probably one of the key things you can do, as well as, make back to what we were saying earlier about story, get your ducks in line and, keep it compelling, and try not to waffle too much. Keep it short and brief and be on point when you're talking to people who generally have another 10, 20 records like yours in the box.
This is like a 7-minute warning to anybody. If anybody wants to get some questions in, at 22, we'll start going to the questions. Charlotte, kind of on the other side of that, like, I'm sure you got a lot of people getting in touch with you. Once your email is out there, it circulates between band to band. It tends to be one band in Newcastle will get it, then the whole fucking Sunderland will have it. And it goes right. But what are the sort of what are the ways that you like to be approached by a new act? I guess that's a question that's asked a lot, is like how to present it and how to send it to you, really.
Yeah, I mean, simple things help, like adding a picture in an email, but like not a really high meg one that will break my inbox. But and put links to stuff, do a brief explanation of what you sound like, or like what your story is. Things addressed personally to me are, not because I have a massive ego, but just because it just makes it seem like the person is not just sending out a kind of mailer to loads of people. And as well, like, if I feel personally like more responsible to replying to someone if they've done that. But yeah, there were a couple of examples. I mean, less helpful right now, or perhaps if you're in a different country, of like where we'd put on some shows at Enemy. We ran a series called Girls to the Front, which was for sort of female music night, where people had just like waited and sort of said hi afterwards. There was a band called Glossy who just gave me like their CD or something. I don't even think I have a CD player, but they basically, they were in a band and they came up and said like, hi, we're in a band, we really like your night. And then we ended up putting them on like as a support act for one of the next ones. So I just think if there are opportunities, if you find yourself in the same space as journalists, or like, do say hi. Like, it's kind of, I always find it easier when I can make a sort of real life connection with someone than it's something behind an email. So
I mean, that is like it still blows my mind that I get sent CDs in the post, and I still get handed CDs, and I haven't had a CD player since 2010. So that's probably just a piece of advice from myself. Although it's weird me giving a piece of advice when I look like a desert mirage. I don't know what's happened with my camera throughout this. Like, I look like I'm in somebody's dream, somebody's fever dream at the minute. I've been trying to fix it like on the subtle, but it doesn't seem to be working. We've got a couple minutes left, and a couple more questions. So like, right, there might be people who are at like a DIY label or a small indie, who are looking advice on marketing their bands, the ones they've got. Like, I mean, I come from the DIY label scene, and getting advice on how to present your music from a label's point of view. Tell me a little bit, Jay, about working with labels and how that's even better or worse, or what is it when you're trying to get a band to market?
When working with small labels, it's helpful if they have good distribution. You know, there are many ways, from just uploading to TuneCore to third-party distributors to full kind of label service deals and whatnot. But you know, small labels with even small budgets can do really good things if, you know, they're kind of realistic about what it is they're trying to achieve. Not everything is always possible and achievable on the small budget you have. So it may be, and you know, I do this often and it happens, it's just like, don't hire me now, go and get a press person, get this story in place, and then let's talk after that. Or it could be the opposite of, this is just a song made for radio, let's go with it, let's get it moving, and then, you know, you can broaden out from there. But yeah, I do think good distribution is important. Having team members who really like what you're doing, whatever that is, you know, when you're speaking the same language. So yeah, vinyl is always nice if you can afford it. I think resurgence of vinyl has really put things physically in people's inboxes or, you know, houses or whatever. But yeah, I think look at the steps you really need. You know, you can't always tell which order, but what makes sense to do, go down those roads.
Elspeth, have people come to you looking for PR too early in their careers? Like, is there a point where it's too early, or can you start from the start?
You can definitely do both. So Sigrid, as an example, she didn't have any music in the UK, like in the public sphere, didn't have a public profile at all. So that was like a standing start. But again, I think that came down to team, and it's the people that are going to be your champions in every area and the experts that signing to a label like Island Records gives you like the expertise in like radio, commercial. Like, you have this huge team who are going out there and fighting for you. So I do think, yes, it's, you know, you could say that it's a lot easier if you're at a major label in the interim having this team, but then, you know, the pressure is on, and the pressure is a lot, and, you know, it has to work. And then the other side of that, you know, I do think that it's probably too early for me to get on board sometimes. I think, you know, what's your visual identity? If you're just sharing one track, like, what's your next EP? Like, always be 2 steps ahead. Like, what's happening over the next 6 months? If you just share with me a single and one press photo, it's like, okay, what else? I think you need to have like the next step needs to be better than your last step, if that makes sense.
Okay, yeah, I think it's time to take some questions now. We've got like 10 minutes left, so if anybody has got any questions, speak now or forever hold your peace. Our first question is from Timu, who says, how would you describe the relationship of the UK and Nordic music media? What are the best ways for a Nordic artist, especially on the indie side, to approach being introduced to the UK audience through press? Charlotte, there's a big meaty question for you to get.
What's the best way for them to approach UK media? Was that the question?
Yeah.
Right. I mean, in much the same ways. Like, back to what I was saying before, you know, an angle on something could be as simple as like, here are 10 new acts from Iceland that are blowing up right now. So, you know, that kind of thing, perhaps approaching with some peers that you are kind of like in a little community with. It could be a good approach. But there are loads of opportunities, and I think people are sort of excited about artists from you know, other places. Is so like just and you kind of feel like you're just telling a bit of a different story. So otherwise, I mean, yeah, the routes into me are basically like email calls, but with the tips that I said, or go through PR. But yeah, I don't know if that was really answered the question. Sorry.
Jenny, you have anything to add to Timo's question about being introduced to the UK audience through press?
Sorry, me. I think, and I know we always talk about The Great Escape, whether it will happen this year or not, but I think The Great Escape is an amazing entry point for artists, for international artists. And I suppose, you know, I'm not sure who you'd speak to in Norway, maybe, you know, it's Music Norway who have put together this incredible panel. But I think, you know, getting on that lineup at The Great Escape, that is where the whole UK music industry like descends on Brighton, for better or for worse. And I think that that's a really good entry point to like you if you want to get in front, playing in front of UK media. But I think everything we've just said, like the research, the writers, it's like know your stuff and know who to speak to, and like as well mentorship. Like I do think people, you know, the further up this strange music industry ladder you go, like people want to give advice. Like if there's someone that you really want to reach out to them. Like 20 minutes of your time, like isn't that much. And likewise, if anyone, you know, wants to talk to me about anything, I'd be happy to chat. I think that just don't be afraid to ask. Darkus, who was the president of Island Records, said to me, and I put it on my desk, and it was like, if you don't ask, you don't get. And it was just quite an immediate, straightforward response to my like nervousness and shyness. And I looked at that every day and I was like, okay, I've got to ask a question.
I mean, that's pretty good, straightforward advice from Darkus. He's always good for the one.
Yeah.
So we have another question from Sean Paul Poole. Sorry, I don't know. I'm really bad at pronunciations. I apologize profusely. I can barely even pronounce my own name right. Also, by the way, The Great Escape, I'm looking out the window. I'm in Brighton at the moment, is where I live. And if you are coming over from Norway for it, you better hope that the weather's better than it is now. It's like a cyclone outside. So to Sean, what advice for an artist who got one song aired on worldwide BBC 6, JYOTY on Rinse FM, and the track is leading up to a debut EP release? What would be the next move then? So I'm guessing, oh, I got it right. Thanks. I got the pronunciation right. I'm very proud of myself. So yeah, leading up to a debut EP release, but has already had some radio play. Jay, I feel like this is your area.
Well, you would hope that there's another track on there from that EP to kind of lean into next. Make sure Jyoti on Rinse, the DJs who have supported are aware that it is from an EP, that more music's coming, and use those early support you've got as a platform for that EP. If there isn't another strong radio opportunity from there, it may be that you move forward to another record, but you know, really try and consolidate what you've got with that and let other people know who may not have supported, who are in a similar place, who may like the shows that have supported you, that these people have played that record. And then, you know, possibly you'll get some more support as, you know, people look over their shoulders and what's in someone else's record box. So that could be a good way of trying to broaden the support on that.
I tend to find that like when you're chatting to young bands and artists, they tend to think that whatever song it is they have, that's their radio song, that they'll come to you going, this is the radio song. It generally normally isn't, because the more poppy it is, the almost harder it is for someone like you it is to get played, because the more niche it is, the easier it is to get played on evening shows. Is that right?
I think, yeah, if you're looking at specialist shows, going with something that is probably your most commercial and poppy bit of work can really backfire. You know, it may be that you hold off on that until you've really built up a head of steam and support, where you can go from, you know, 11 o'clock evening shows through down the schedule towards daytime. But, you know, I think most specialist shows like things that are interesting that aren't necessarily, you know, a copy of what's elsewhere, you know. So shine through with, you know, what is original material to you and keep it interesting, you know.
We got one from Miko that says, awesome story and work regarding Benny, Elspeth. Then it says, say, which I'm reading going, say, say now. I have really good songs. How can I get you guys to listen to those? So without putting you, I was going to say without putting you on the, I wasn't going to get you to have to put your email in, but Jay just went and screwed it for all of you. Are you guys all on Instagram? And if so, are your DMs open on Instagram?
Yes, DMs open. Slide into the DMs if necessary, but I will provide my email address, which is like professional.
yeah, maybe I'll do that as well.
Fair enough. I wasn't going to put you there, but you can. I think that's the end of the questions that we have now. Unless any others come in, I'm going to spend 3 minutes now playing, doing some yo-yo tricks for you, just to take it up to maybe like 10-2. But guys, no, listen, thank you very much to all of you who are in the chat and all of you who are watching this as well. Big up to Nordic for putting this on. Thank you very much to Charlotte and Elspeth and Jay. And yeah. That is us done and dusted. Enjoy the rest of your sessions. Enjoy the rest of your day.